So in a previous video, I mentioned the Chinese in the search for the famed Elixir of Life, and after publishing that video, I realized we're not going to talk about that. But it really got me thinking about all the people that spent their entire lives searching for this cure for death. The idea of somehow preventing the inevitable kicking of the bucket has been on people's minds ever since people started kicking the bucket. So let's just jump right into it. Qin Shi Huang, the emperor of the Qin dynasty, was one of those curious people. In an attempt to discover the bottle of infinite life, Sunny D sent 500 young men and 500 young women, led by Xiu Fu, on a journey to discover the Mount of Immortals in the Eastern Sea. Apparently, instead they found Japan. If only they knew the horrors that would come from that accursed place. Of course, the disappearance of 1,000 young Chinese men and women didn't stop the searching. The mindset was most likely something along the lines of, if we find the elixir of life, we'll stop death, so the people that die looking for it are negligible. Others who were seeking immortality didn't think that it was something that could be found, rather that it would be created through alchemy. Precious metals like gold were thought to be especially helpful, which led to many people drinking various cocktails of gems and minerals. Unfortunately, these alchemists thought that other more harmful substances like arsenic and mercury were necessary to extend life, which leads to people like the Zhejiang emperor in the Ming dynasty ingesting lethal amounts of mercury, which he drank believing it would grant him immortality. And guess what? He got back up and is still alive to this day. That was a joke. He died because he drank mercury, the stuff that causes brain damage simply by inhaling the metal as it evaporates. What did you guys expect? Chinese emperors weren't the only people that didn't want to die. I'm pretty sure this is one of those ideas that is shared by almost everybody on Earth, including Europe, which is where we go next. Wait a second! Didn't you go straight from China to Europe in your last video? Well, that's just the way the script worked out. There's no meaning behind it. You're trying to insinuate that the only parts of history that mattered happened in China and Europe, aren't you? No, of course not. Oh, Vox! No, please! I'm pretty sure this is one of those ideas that is shared by almost everybody on Earth, including India, which is where we go to find a completely different take on the god juice. Indian people believed that the source of immortality was something called Amrita, which would grant instant immortality to anyone who consumed it, much like the Greek mythology's ambrosia, which wasn't something for normal human consumption and mostly reserved for the gods. Indian alchemists were thought to use gold, and, you guessed it, more mercury, to create potions, but these were used as more of a medicine than a one-size-fits-all cure for death. Now that I've covered a culture other than Europe and China, the media goons have stopped listening, and I believe I can finally venture back to our good old friend Europe, where people were just as obsessed with not dying as the people were in Asia. Now, of course, with Europe being a hub for trading and culture, I'm willing to bet that a good handful of people ended up poisoning themselves and ending their playthrough on Earth early, in an attempt to live longer. But we're not going to be looking at things like that. One of the most famous Europeans that was said to search for immortality was a Spaniard named Juan Ponce de Leon, who sought the famed Fountain of Youth, but instead he found Florida. Except that he didn't. Juan was most likely searching the Bahama and Florida area for gold and silver. The myth that he was searching for the Fountain of Youth was created long after his death, in an attempt to portray him as a foolish man. The lie stuck though, and a tourist attraction in St. Augustine, Florida boasts his name. Really, I can't help but feel sorry for Mr. Juan, because instead of being remembered as an adventurer who traveled with the likes of Christopher Columbus and discovered Florida, he's remembered as some kind of crackpot explorer who spent his entire life looking for something that didn't even exist. The progression of modern science hasn't hindered the constant search for immortality, and/or not dying, and if you think about it, as modern medicine has progressed, we have continually raised the bar of the expected lifespan. So if we continue on the current path, it may be possible that we could eventually stop people from biting the dust. But also considering how many different ways you can cease living, it's highly unlikely that an overall cure for death will be discovered soon or at all. So that was the end of the video, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. Now some lesser men would now take this time to beg for likes and subscribers. So like and subscribe. But I also want to let all 18 of you guys know that if you ever have an idea for an upcoming video, feel free to leave it in the comments below. If I ever end up choosing any of your ideas, I'll make sure to let everybody know that you too contributed to this sinking ship of a channel. That's all, and thanks for watching.